Okay, in this video, we're going to cover the audience overlap and the auction overlap and how those things are intertwined and how can you use it to maximize your results, because this can determine a solid structure to not compete with yourself. We're also going to understand this audience overlap as I'm showing you in my screen. I'm going to teach you how to create that, and I'm also going to explain to you the fragmentation rule, the audience fragmentation, and how all those things are connected, okay, to avoid deliberate blockage. But first things first, let me start by explaining to you why a 100% audience overlap matters and why a 100% overlap might be beneficial for your case. It really depends where you're at. If you are a beginner, how much budget do you have to spend? Because with the higher budget, you can cover a higher portion of a pool of a audience, right? So let's check this one out. So here we have a 100% overlap. Let's say this is broad targeting and this is a audience that has a higher likelihood to engage with your audience. If your ad account has already intelligence, if you use for a long period, maybe you shouldn't use this one, because within the broad audience, Meta will understand how to tackle it. Like, it will understand each part of this broad audience it should target first. But if you are starting, and even if you have a smaller budget and you are very confident that this portion, this smaller audience, has a higher likelihood of conversion, then you can use it. That's why I wrote here, it might be beneficial only with lower budgets and no optimization. Okay, so a 100% overlap, it might be beneficial in this case, but what I mean by that, it's not like we were going to use the broad and the narrow. We're going to start with a lot of narrow audiences, but your narrow audiences might be overlapping with each other. So I'm going to explain the field how to use that feature that I showed to you to see if your audiences are overlapping. Okay, also, let's say you have a 20% overlap. It's always recommended, okay, because you're dealing with different size, dealing with different portion, and you don't have a huge overlap. So it's always recommended to use when you have at a 20% overlap. If you have enough optimization, you can even combine them depending on the situation. I prefer to use more granular tests like a interest per ad set, but in some cases you can combine them too, right? And why? And here's another reason why the audience overlap matters, because can limited deliver ads block each other and fragmented learnings. Each ad set remains in learning phase or fails to scale. Okay, that's why it's important to explain that, and we're going to identify that in a field, because this can lead to the auction overlap, which is Meta choosing only one ad from your page to enter the auction, which means you're not bidding against yourself directly like happens with your competitors, but the other ads are effectively blocked from the auction, leading to under deliver on those losers. Okay, and here's the bottom line: overlapping or duplicative ad sets can cannibalize each other's performance and prevent scaling. So as you can see in this example, we have the overlapping ad sets. Each circles represent an ad set targeting a different interest, but they all intersect, meaning you're targeting many of the same people multiple times. This leads to audience overlap, which is when different ad sets compete for the same eyeballs. Therefore, the auction overlap is when Meta only lets one ad from your page enter any given auction. When overlap happens, Meta selects the ad with the highest total value. What is the total value? This encompasses CTR, conversion rates, and etc. So basically, this is the formula of total value, where you use advertiser bid, estimated action rates plus user value. The advertiser bid is the amount an advertiser is willing to pay to achieve their desired outcome, such as click or conversion. Okay, the estimated action rates is when Facebook's prediction of how likely a user is to engage with or convert from the ads. This estimation is based on factors like the ad historical performance and relevance to the target audience. And then finally, we have an assessment of the ad's quality and relevance, okay, which is the user value, considering user feedback and the overall user experience. So basically, this formula over here is the quality of your ad compared to the user experience, okay, which is practically the same thing that will determine your CPM. So when you have a better user value and your ads are competing, they're not going to actually compete. The one that has lower user value will stop to deliver. All right, so the other ads are blocked for entering the auction. They don't get a chance to deliver, as I explained before. Then you come to this decision point because you're left wondering, why is one ad spanning and the others aren't? And why is performance unstable? This is auction overlap in action, not a budget problem, but a structure problem, right? When you have this delivery blockage, you get angry, right? So ads that don't win the auction don't get shown, so they underspend and stay stuck in learning limited and deliver unpredictable results, which also leads to the audience fragmentation. This is what happens when you split your budget and audience too thin across many small ad sets, okay? Instead of one strong signal, Meta gets multiple weak signals. That makes it harder to learn, optimize, and scale. And then we got the fragmentation rule. Meta may intervene using automation rules. We're going to see how to apply that in the field. These rules merge budgets plus audiences, sometimes even creatives, into one stronger ad set. This helps consolidate learning and restore delivery. Here's the key takeaway. You can say this out loud. Overlapping ad sets don't beat against each other, but they do get in each other's way. The best way to fix this is by using fewer, broader ad sets and letting Meta's system optimize with less fragmentation. Okay, so as you can see my screen right here, we are in the audience section, and in order to get here, all you need to do is to click here on all tools, the three lines, and find audiences, right? So as you can see, you just need to click here, and then we're going to get to this place. So in order to analyze and compare how much your audiences are overlapping, all that you need to do is to create saved audiences, okay? This can't be done at the ad set level. You actually have to create audiences first. And in order to do that, all you need to do is hit create audience and then click saved audience, okay? And from here, you can create your audiences, whether that be using Advantage Plus, age range, men, women. So you should know how to target your audience and then create potential good audiences. This is not to focus the video on how to create audiences, okay? The focus is to compare the overlapping and the overlap auction. So let's say you set your audiences, okay? So let's say I am the fitness space and I created these audiences right here. So all that I need to do is to select all of them because we're going to compare. Let's compare with broad targeting too, just for you to see how clear as water it is, okay? Show audience overlap, all right? So for example, you have one selected audience that is going to be compared to the rest. As you can see, we're comparing the Crunch Fitness, which has 10 million people in average, comparing to similar audiences. As you can see, I'm comparing to audiences that have a similar size aside of this physical fitness because I'm using it as an example. As you can see, the broader the audience, higher the chances of overlapping. So that's why I said previously, it really depends your stage, because if you have a lot of pixel intelligence, you can use broader audiences and Meta will find people that have a higher likelihood to convert. But if you were starting, maybe it's better to start with smaller audiences because Meta doesn't know yet which people have a higher likelihood to convert, right? So as you can see, broader audiences as the physical fitness and the broad targeting will always overlap practically 100%. This one is overlapping 97%. So let's compare only these three right here, okay? But as you can see, they are already overlapping practically 70% for the LA Fitness and 40 and 54% for the Anytime Fitness. We can change here to the broad, and obviously it's never going to overlap 100%. So inside of the broad audience, the physical fitness, which is a wide audience, encompasses 43%, overlaps 43% of the broad targeting, as you can see right here. So the physical fitness, it might be a good audience to use when you have a certain optimization, but your account is not like 100% optimized yet. Now, let's compare only the audiences, the smaller audiences. Let's say if you're starting your business and you want to set your targeting. As you can see, they're overlapping too much. Let's change to LA Fitness. As you can see, it's 60%, 68%, 37. Yeah, the Crunch Fitness compared to Anytime Fitness. No, but they're overlapping, yeah. Yeah, as you can see here in this example, they're overlapping too much. These three are not good to be used because they're overlapping too much. You have to find audiences within your niche that are not overlapping too much, okay? So this is how we use the overlapping tool. All right, so now we're going to check how to apply the rules to avoid audience fragmentation. But obviously, if you used this tool previously, you don't need to do that because they're not overlapping too much. The likelihood of that happen will be lower, right? But let's check that even knowing that. So let's click on manage rules. As you can see, we got here reduce audience fragmentation and also reduce auction overlap. Okay, and they are similar, but they have different actions. The auction overlap will automatically turn off the ad set. So what usually happens is that your ad set stops to perform, but with this rule it will automatically turn off the ad set. Okay, so if you want to use it, feel free. And also we got the audience fragmentation auto apply, which is when automatically meta combine ad sets, audience, and budgets on your campaign. Okay, and this is my final advice. You want to avoid audience overlap, and we have seen how to do this, but also you want to avoid audience fragmentation. Okay, in order to do that, we need to start with the right structure. Okay, so what do I recommend to you? Okay, fewer ad sets means less overlap and fewer auctions to worry about. Clear consolidate data for faster learning. Okay, what is recommended? 3 or 5 during testing, then 1 or 2 when scaling. Okay, ads per ad set 3 to 5, up to 7 or 8 if you really need to test small creative tweaks and have the budget. Okay, risks of too many ad sets or ads. Prolonged learning phases. Some variations won't get any impressions. Meta picks early winners are harder to interpret which variable is actually driving success or failure. Also, when it comes to budget allocation strategies, we need to decide how to use ABO and CBO. What people usually do is to start testing with ABO and then scaling with CBO. What I do is to start CBO and set a minimum budget per ad set. This is practically the same as ABO, but with CBO together. And then once the audience is tested, I just remove the minimum ad spend and I leave the CBO optimizing itself. Okay, so I believe I cover everything in this video. Drop here in the comments if you have more suggestions, and I cast a spell on your bone. The spell says, those who do not subscribe to this channel will never reach a return ad spend over 2. You've got an option, my friend.
Subscribe, don't wait, hit the button for real. Transform your hustle, make the most of the deal. Clicks and leads from the screen to the sky. Media buyer for coaches, take your biz on a high. Course creators gather, ain't no time to lag. Sharpened up like a knife in a drag. Content so slick, make your wallet go swoon. Meta algorithms got you rich by noon.